Humanity is in peril. The tides of darkness have come again. Cries of war echo upon the winds. The world is poised upon the brink of war. The remnants of the past scar the land, which is besieged once again by conflict.
Ishnu Dalyeb, friends. I am your humble Dungeon Master Epigon, and in this video, I want to bring you a glimpse into my perspective on role-playing a member of the Night Elves from World of Warcraft, be it in the actual game, or if you want to implement the race in your tabletop RPGs like Dungeons & Dragons. Before we delve into the subject, I want to mention that this isn't by any means a guide, but rather these are my own views as a DM into elements of the society and culture of the race that I have found appealing and good starting points for character and story development. I will be focusing a lot on those elements of the race that set it apart from standard fantasy archetypes and give it that unique flavor that so many of us have fallen in love with. So, without any further delay, let us begin. In Night Elven lore, a crucial aspect that is fundamental to their view of the world is that they used to be immortal. In fantasy in general, elves have always been viewed as an elder race, close to immortality, but what sets the Night Elves apart is that they have lost this gift. Being confronted so drastically with their own mortality is something that has heavily affected them, and offers much potential for us to explore and develop into captivating stories. It is a brilliant point to build upon that lets us delve deep into their individual growth and can bring a lot of flavor to the game, making for an interesting coming-of-age tale. In spite of their loss, these elves still live for a large number of years. They develop at the same rate as humans do, reaching physical maturity at approximately the age of 30, yet they are considered children in their society until they are a century old, and they are viewed as teenagers until they reach about 300 years. So, with their extended lifespan, it is important for us to mention it, because as we have observed in our own society, habits are hard to break. Thus, for a race that lives for such a long time, the mannerisms that they acquire in those first few centuries of life will shape the average elf's personality in a very drastic manner. It is something to keep in mind when deciding on your character's age, since it can give an interesting line to explore when developing a backstory. Another noteworthy aspect of Night Elven physiognomy is the color of their eyes. Among the Night Elves, amber-colored eyes, as opposed to the traditional silver ones, were associated with inherent druidic potential, and as many thought, it was a sign that that individual was destined for outstanding achievements. For the elves who lived prior to the War of the Ancients, amber eyes were rare and thus viewed as a sign of underlying greatness. Queen Jara and Ilmin Stormrage, both extremely powerful sorcerers, had amber eyes. But as the race became vastly more egalitarian after the war's end, and after abandoning their former obsession with bloodlines, those eyes became far more common. In addition, Druidism spread in their society, and many Night Elves developed those eyes after birth in the practice of Druidic arts. Though they are a sign that the individual has a natural ability for Druidic magic, it does not mean that amber-eyed Night Elves become Druids, nor that silver-eyed Night Elves are unable to. Malfurion himself was born without them and developed amber eyes later, yet his own brother, though born with amber eyes, lacked the patience to succeed in the art. Eye color is just one of the many little divides within their society that we can observe, alongside such things as gender role segregation. However, a more prominent yet often overlooked aspect of this culture's fragmented social etiquette is the importance attributed to facial markings. The facial markings are tattoos females traditionally receive during their rite of passage, a ritual meant to symbolize their journey into adulthood. Their male counterparts do not receive facial tattoos during this initiation. The Kaldare have a matriarchal society. It has only been in the last 20 years or so that males have been allowed to take on the roles attributed to females in their society, and vice versa. However, the facial marks remain a female tradition, while tattoos on other parts of the body can be seen on both genders. So, what does it mean if a female does not have facial tattoos? Well, this can mean several things. The first and most obvious is that the female is not considered an adult yet. She has not chosen her path or has not been yet found worthy for the rite of passage. To note that this is not a choice that she or her parents have to make. Children in Night Elven society are raised by the community, and the approval for this rite would most likely come from the child's teacher. The second is that the female has chosen not to follow the traditions of her kin. She could have refused the tattoos or the rite of passage, although this is an incredibly rare thing that is often frowned upon and even looked down on by her own brethren. The highborn that returned to their community after the events of the Cataclysm often had no facial tattoos to speak of. So, what do the tattoos mean, you may ask? Well, that is not entirely clear, though the general consensus is that they reflect the personality of the female along with the path that she has chosen. The path is not the same as the occupation she might end up in. This means that the tattoo is not just for a druid or a sentinel or a priestess. They symbolize many things and can be looked at from different angles. These markings are generally split into 9 paths or castes as follows. The Path of Shadow. Shadow cannot exist without light. It is attached to everything. The shadows are often considered a dark mystery, for who knows what hides and lurks within. It is a great place to find refuge and lie in observation. The war chants of the Great Sisters call down the Night Warrior's wrath to smite their foes. Another well-known fact is that most Night Elves are able to blend into the shadows, to watch and observe, and to surprise their enemies. Shadow is the opposite of light, and neither one can exist without the other. Both light and darkness work best together when in balance. It suits the mysterious and the silent among us, those who brood in darkness, those who wait cunningly in the night and strike swiftly when the time is right. The Path of the Blade. Associated with warriors, battle, and bravery, the blade is a symbol for many things and does not have to be considered the physical weapon in your hand. A blade is wielded by those who seek to bring justice or righteous retribution, to protect the weak, and for many, it's an extension of one's being. It stands as a symbol for the gate between life and death, and is wielded by the courageous and the focused. This tattoo is often used by those who see themselves fighting for their own beliefs. While it can mean with an actual steel sword, we can also fight and seek justice through other means as well. A great example can be through politics and strategy. The Path of the Crane. The crane is a rare bird, not found in many numbers, with a close connection to water, and in most societies, water is the symbol of healing. The birth of a crane is rare, and the raising of one is often kept secret by the parents, who protect their children extremely well and are devoted and patient with the cause. For this reason, the crane is seen as the symbol of a parent or a teacher, a person great at keeping secrets, planning in silence with true patience. They move with grace and beauty and seem very serene animals. This tattoo often fits a caring person, be they a teacher, a healer, a mother, or even a caring leader. The path of the claws. Claws are the symbol for an important animal within the Kaldore society, that of the night saber. Sabers are ferocious animals, feral and aggressive. Those tamed and befriended by the Kaldore are extremely loyal. Sabers are exceptional at hunting and tracking down prey. Agile and swift, they are able to move through the forest unseen and silent. Hesitation is not something that suits this animal, nor the person who carries this symbol as a tattoo. They face all challenges head-on and are perhaps not considered to most to be patient. They move with pride and grace. They are truly the ultimate hunter. The path of the owl. The owl is the most beloved of the goddess's night birds. The sentinels use owls to spy, as they are excellent at blending into the darkness of the night. The hearing and eyesight of an owl is unmatched, and this makes them, together with their silent movement, skilled hunters. Owls symbolize the night, mystery, and wisdom. They can notice the smallest changes in a person or environment, which makes it hard to hide secrets from them. The owl is a messenger, a spy, a guardian, and suits people who excel at working in silence. The path of the bear. Bears are true survivors, adjusting to their environment with the cycle of the seasons. They stand for raw strength and power and are quicker than most think. They can hide in a hole for a long time when giving birth, not coming out for months at a time. Symbolically, this can mean that you take your time to think and reflect, take several months or even years to come up with a solution to a problem. When looking at the Ursol and Ursak brothers, you can see that teamwork and siblings are important for them. They are warm and they make great friends. Bears stand for balance, wisdom, and most of all, patience. The path of the leaf. The leaf is associated with Cenarius, lord of the forest and patron of all druids, and Esina, the spirit of wilderness. It is the symbol for healing, nourishment, and balance. Nature adapts and is able to regenerate and regrow and survive severe damage and destruction. Many plants can survive through harsh conditions and harsh seasons. It is a symbol loved by druids, but can also be worn by those who like to bring healing, harmony, and balance to the world. This doesn't necessarily have to be done in a forest, but in society as well, and those who choose the path of the leaf are considered Harmarks within their society. The path of the serpent. The serpent is related to dragons. The strongest symbol for the serpent is the circle of death and rebirth, depicted by the shedding of its skin. While a serpent sheds its skin, the eyes will become blurry or clouded, making it appear as if they are in a state of trance. With all this, Ysera easily comes to mind. Ysera is the protector of the Emerald Dream, keeping one foot in this world and one foot in the other. The serpent is a strong symbol for trance, meditation, and dreaming. They are extremely fast, agile and strong, devouring their meals whole. They can lie still for a long time, waiting and observing their prey, though once they strike, it is lightning fast and deadly. The path of the wings. The symbol of Aviana, the winged messenger of a loon. Wings stand for flight, the wind in the sky. With flying comes the strong sensation of freedom and distance. Winged creatures are often used as a swift way to travel or carry messages to far destinations. The perfect symbol for scholars and people who would rather work from a distance or fight by striking from a ranged position over close quarter confrontation. Those who choose the path of the wings are great at diplomacy and communication and have a broad insight on life. As we have seen, even the most minute detail about a night elf's outward physical appearance can have an important role for placing that individual in society. These details paint a far more complex image of their culture as a whole and allow us to focus with greater understanding on the psychological aspects of their way of life. We have seen that there is great segregation within the Kaldore society, a divide between the castes, a divide between gender roles, a divide between bloodlines, and even their occupations. Thus it comes as no surprise that a vast majority of elves are xenophobic and proud, characteristics developed at an early age and reinforced with their social mechanisms. So let's have a look on how these traits are made manifest in their daily lives. First of all, the night elves display a love for their own heritage that makes them look incredibly racist to others, be it intentional or not. It is no secret that the elves and trolls of Azeroth share common ancestry, yet over the millennia we have seen these two races constantly at war. Furthermore, diversity within their own culture and society is shunned and ostracized. Another example of this is how they despise the Naga that in ages past used to be part of their own lineage. The same thing can be observed in their dealings with the Sindore, the Blood Elves, and the High Elves that were exiled after the events of the Sundering. It is a little ironic as we can see this xenophobic behavior bears a striking similarity to fascist dogma, and yet Night Elves do not manifest the same level of discrimination for the other races as they do for their own kin. Previously, we mentioned that age and lifespan played an important role in their society, and this is evident in their xenophobic tendencies towards their dealings with the other races in two distinct aspects. On the one hand, the loss of their immortality plays a big part as their entire culture has had to learn to adapt with the idea of death, and therefore they have sought the wisdom of the other races in how they cope with their own mortality. Naturally, they have had to open up, while at the same time, the ever-present fear of their own demise makes them even more suspicious of others. And as we have learned in other works of fiction, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering. This gives rise to an internal conflict, a contradiction that can lead to interesting stories. On the other hand, we have the inevitable fact that even though no longer immortal, an elf would still live far longer than members of other races, in particular the humans. Forging relations with members of other races means that the elf would live long enough to see their new friends, their children, and their children's children all grow old and eventually die. Since the concept of death and mortality is new to them, having to see their friends slowly inch forward towards their grave would cause much grief for any elf. It is this fear of suffering that makes the elves seem cold when dealing with the other races, and why they try to isolate themselves. The second predominant trait of the Night Elven psychology is their pride. Night Elves tend to gravitate towards the extremes when it comes to this. Their society breeds them to naturally take pride in their heritage, so much so that it was their pride which led to the events of the Sundering. In lore, we know that Queen Ajara was so proud she truly believed that no one was worthy of being her mate except the Titan Sargeras himself. It was the elves' foolishness and pride that led to the great catastrophe that shattered the world. Many see the elves as being nature-loving hippies, which couldn't be further from the truth. In ancient times, night elves were masters of the arcane arts, and only a few had a deep connection with nature. Only after the Sundering that they became guardians and protectors of nature, not out of love, mind you, but from a deep feeling of guilt at what they had done. It was their hurt pride, more than any other sentiment, which led them to assume responsibility for nearly destroying the world and eventually led them to completely change their outlook on life. Such is the pride of the Night Elves, borderline insane. Knowing all of this sheds new light into many aspects of their society. We can see that they are not so similar as the standard fictional elves of D&D or the Tolkien-esque archetype for Middle-earth. One other interesting point from which we can expand our understanding of their behavior is that of gender roles within their culture. Although the concept is not unique to the World of Warcraft universe, as matriarch has seen a pivotal role in other races of fantasy as well, such as the Drow, the Azerothian elves have enough nuance to their interpretation of the subject that it warrants mentioning. Their society already had different gender roles, so the divide became even more apparent when Ysera blessed the elves, allowing them to enter the Emerald Dream. When the call came, it was the males that stepped forward and answered the beckons, while their female counterparts stayed behind to guard their bodies in the real world as the males slumbered. This new development shifted the focus of the female in Night Elven society that now had to take up the role of guardian. Add to that the natural maternal instincts, and the females of the Night Elves became ferocious tigers that would shred any enemy to bits if they felt it would pose a threat to their beloved mates. Thus we notice their culture change once again, turning their matriarchal society into a veritable militaristic faction. There is also the misconception that elves are wise, but brutal, cold, reserved, unyielding, depressing. That is not aided by the way in which some of the more notable NPCs within the game carry themselves, such as Malfurion, Tyrande, and Maiev. But the truth is that among their own kind, elves are known to be cheerful, playful, even naive when it comes to the dangers of the world. This is further proven by the loyalty and ever-watchfulness of the sentinels that guard the forests. As we have seen earlier, the main force that drives them is their unquestionable love and maternal instinct. So we have seen the elves form a militaristic state, bent on reclaiming their lost pride for the events of the Sundering. We have seen how their society used to interpret gender roles in the past, and the reasons why they act the way they do when it comes to others, because of their upbringing. But we also see their culture on the verge of another shift, as a result of their interaction with the other races of the Alliance. In closing, I would like to have a brief look at their caste system and how it relates to the classes available in-game. First, we have the priesthood. As religion goes, the elves do not share in the beliefs of other races with regards to the holy light, and they draw their power from their gods, most notable of which is Elune. Besides Elune, the priesthood sects also worship her pantheon, which include the gods Goldrin, Aviana, Ursocken, Ursel, and Malorn. We have learned earlier that due to the call of the Emerald Dream, most males had taken up the path of the Druid, so the priesthood of the Night Elves is, as a vast majority, formed of female worshippers. Although rare, it isn't unreasonable to see a male take up the mantle of priesthood. However, it is very uncommon. The priesthood of the Night Elves is led by Tyrande Whisperwind. Working hand in hand with the worshippers of Elune, we have the Druid caste. Again, this looks like a male-dominant caste. However, we do have rare examples of females also taking up the practice. The main focus of the Druids is restoring balance to nature and protecting the Emerald Dream. They are led by Tyrande's lover, Malfurion Stormrage. The main militaristic force of the Night Elves is represented by the Sentinel caste. Among their ranks we see brave warriors and huntresses. The huntresses, however, are not what many would think when looking at the hunter class within the game. The Night Elven version is more similar to an elite cavalry unit than anything else. These proud warriors form a strong relationship with their mounts, the sabers. In recent years, they have started to nourish these ferocious cats in Winter Spring, where they breed a special kind of saber meant for war. The warriors become very attached to their feline companions, and they collect the fangs of the fallen sabers as a token of respect to cherish their memory for their sacrifices on the fields of battle. The Sentinel caste is led by Chandris Feathermoon, a huntress of legendary skill and power. Lastly, we have the Warden caste led by Maiev Shadowsong. These proud warriors are tasked with guarding the secrets of the Night Elves and act much like a military police unit. Among other notable duties, the Wardens seek out and destroy those who would pose a threat to the world and act as guardians for dangerous criminals like Illidan Stormrage and his Illidari. There are other castes within the social order of the Night Elves, but they are not as prominent, although, just to name a few, we have the Demon Hunters and the Mage Highborn that have slowly been reintegrated into society after the events of the Cataclysm and Legion. And with this, we conclude our little overview of the Night Elven race within World of Warcraft. There is much more that can be said since the race has a long history, the longest of all the races in the game, but that would dilute the purpose of this video. I hope that I have brought you an interesting look into some of the many facets of their society and have provided you with new ideas and inspiration to further the development of your personal characters and their stories for a more richer experience. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and let me know if you want me to cover some of the other races from the game. I have been your humble Dungeon Master, Epigon, and may Elune be with you.